why we are the way we are.
Right.
Your book makes me feel we are ultimately our genes. And that defines everything in our body. The diseases that I will get, the habits that I will have, the metabolism that will grow, the exercises that I need to do, basically everything. I can't do enough because my genes will take me in a particular direction. How? Explain that to me.
I want you to understand that genes have an important role, but ultimately it's your lifestyle that impacts your metabolic health. So don't give all the credit to genes is what I would say. But to answer your question, we Indians specifically, we have a predisposition to have metabolic disorders. And for those who don't know what metabolic disorders mean, metabolic disorders are basically a cluster of chronic lifestyle diseases. It starts from diabetes, which is extremely common in India now, right? India's now the diabetes capital of the world. There are 101 million diagnosed diabetics already in India. Then you move into cardiovascular disease, hypertension, fatty liver, obesity, to a large extent, your neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and then also your fertility-related issues like PCOS and erectile dysfunction. This is a cluster of this entire cluster is called metabolic disorder, essentially. And we, as Indians, are predisposed to have these metabolic disorders early in our life, and also we are predisposed to have them. The probability of us having these disorders is higher than, let's say, a Caucasian or a European population. The reason for that is, of course, it's our past, it's our genes, and our DNA doesn't get changed, but our epigenetics get rewired. And there are multiple researchers, and it's known by various different names. Some call it thin fat Indian phenotype, some call it thrifty genome. And basically, they all say the same thing. What it means is that our genes evolved for the time period that we were living in the past. And to give you some context, when British were ruling us during the colonial years, they ruled us for 190 years, starting from 1754 till 1947, right? During that time, India faced 31 famines. That's an average of one famine every 6 years. Before Britishers came here, we used to rarely have famines. It was like one famine every 50 years and usually at a small scale. But that changed completely during the colonial rule. And the reason it changed, it's not because there were more natural calamities or anything. It was basically induced by the British policy. British, they basically changed our entire infrastructure. They changed how the agriculture was done. They forced Indian farmers to produce cash crops. These are crops like sugar, opium, cotton, over staples like wheat and rice, because you get less money growing them, and so they forced farmers to grow cash crops, and then they built the entire infrastructure from railways to everything which was oriented towards export. So whatever the farmers were growing, even the staples that they were growing, they were being shipped abroad. They were exported instead of the domestic consumption, which led to all of these famines. Not only that, there were various other policies that influenced this. And 190 years is a pretty long time. Our DNA doesn't change, but our epigenetics change. And they change for a good reason, because they have to survive. And one of the major changes that happened was that we had to figure out how are we going to survive in a state of famine. And our genes evolved in a way to actually store more fat, because fat is a really good energy source. And if your body is able to hold on to more fat, the next time when famine comes, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to survive that. And these epigenetics are passed on from generation to generation. There is a study that I have cited in my book, which is the clearest evidence of this. In China, there was a famine in 1954, and there was a study done across 3 generations of the people who faced that famine to find out the generational impact of famine. The researchers, they first looked at mothers who were expecting during that famine time. They call it F0 generation. These were the mothers who were expecting babies, who were pregnant, and they faced severe starvation during that point of time. Then they looked at the next generation. So basically, these are the offsprings or children who were born out of those mothers. And what they found was that this generation had 70% higher chance of becoming of getting diabetes. 70% higher. purely because of the adaptations that mother went through during the time of starvation, and that was passed on to the children when they were in the womb, and that's the epigenetic.
And the third generation?
Yeah, it didn't end there. So third generation, which was called F2, when they looked at them, they had 2 times higher chances of developing diabetes as compared to the average of rest of the population. So there is a clear evidence that these epigenetics are passed on from generation to generation. And
so am I to understand that the famines that India faced during the British rule, our bodies today, your and mine, still have impact from it?
Absolutely. And before you think that it's too far in the past, by the way, the last famine in India was in 1950s. So it's not that too far apart, right? And these epigenetic, through these studies, have shown that they're passed on from generation to generation for a pretty long time. So basically, our bodies, they were built for survival. They were built for scarcity. Unfortunately, now that survival mechanism had turned against us, because now we're not living in scarcity anymore. We're actually living in abundance. We have calorie-dense food available around us all the time. Most of us are eating anywhere from 3 to 6 meals a day. And we can order food in like under 10 minutes on our mobile phone. Our activity level has gone down a lot. Now instead of hunting food, we just open the mobile phone and we order, and the maximum amount of effort that we put is to go to the door and collect the food order, right? So we find ourselves in an age which is full of abundance. There's a lot of energy dense food around us, but that's not what our bodies were meant for. So that's why we were built for scarcity, but we find ourselves in abundance, and that is what causes the dissonance, and that's why the metabolic.
But won't the body adapt?
It takes a long time. It takes a long time.
So 50s is when you're saying the last famine came in.
Right.
So I am generation 3 then, right?
I don't know how old you are, but
I am generation 3 then. If my grandmother.
But who's to say it
perhaps.
stops there? It's your epigenetics that have evolved over a long period of time.